Floyd! Floyd! I'll knock you out! He's sick, look at him.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
You, and from what you've seen from the situation, do you believe that Alicia is a clean fighter?
No, absolutely not. If you look at what she was tested positive for. Now, I always thought that she looked extremely ripped. And I've had people tell me, oh, she's on to me, she's on to me. And I'm like, no, she's a Christian. She's a Christian. She's always tweeting all this Christian stuff, right? You know, she loves God. So she wouldn't do something like that. Lo and behold, what she got tested positive for wasn't like minimal traces of stuff that can be found in, you know, cross-contamination, like protein or whatever. Those are some hardcore testosterone levels and whatever, some other black market drug that you can't even get in America, right? I'm not really sure why, one, she's going on like it's no big deal and that she's clean. It's kind of crazy, honestly. And she thinks taking her test 3 months later is going to prove her innocent. But the real problem is with the governing bodies and the commissions and everyone who should have already stripped her already. There's got to be more consistency amongst athletes who don't follow the rules. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point? What's going on? We should all be, there's no transparency here. We should be knowing what's going on.
Yeah, what did you make of, you mentioned it, the test that she came out, and she said she did a test on her own, independent test that exonerated her, that it showed that, she did nothing wrong and it cleared her.
I think it's crazy how she actually thinks that would work. Since when can we go take our own tests from our own lab and prove our own innocence? Like, it doesn't work that way. Not to mention, whatever she was testing for, don't hair follicles only stay in your system, or it only stays in your hair for 3 months? And she waited till a little over 3 months to go and take that test. So that doesn't prove anything. That doesn't prove anything. I don't know where she needs a publicist, honestly, to reel her in, because she's off the rocker with all that, honestly. And we all know that, except for little simple simp fans.
Well, Michaela,
she's hot.
Let's just be honest about things here. Let's put our cards on the table.
Yeah.
Alicia Baumgardner's fucking hot.
Yeah.
And really hot women, attractive women, deserve special treatment. And she's going to get it.
I'm not going to apologize for that.
Stop dicking around. The truth is, I can't blame Michaela Mayer here for how she feels and what she says, because what she's saying is what any fighter would say if they were in Michaela's position. It's the reaction you'd expect. She doesn't actually believe that Alicia Baumgardner's independent testing, hair follicle testing, exonerates her. The rhyme and the reason for hair follicle testing being that these banned substances have a tendency to stay in an athlete's hair follicles long after they've used them. But if these substances are not present in the hair follicles where they may have been present via urinalysis, well, that is worth considering. But I'm not a lab tech, and neither are you. In the court of public opinion, to some people, irrespective of the hair follicle testing, Alicia Baumgardner is a dirty fighter. She's a dirty fighter if you ask them. She's a dirty fighter if you ask Michaela Mayer. And that's what I would expect Michaela to say. That's what I would expect to hear.
No surprises.
I can only tell you what I think.
That's it.
And if you want to know what I think, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do. I think Alicia Baumgardner is far too attractive for me to worry about this entire anti-doping fiasco. The woman's insanely hot. Will you stop? I think that the sport of boxing and the boxers themselves, they don't actually care as much about anti-doping as they let on when you consider that there are already a good number of boxers in circulation that have tested positive for banned substances in previous instances, and the powers that be haven't kept them out of the sport. Those who consume the sport, the spectators, they haven't stopped watching them. Did anybody boycott the Miller versus Dubois fight because Miller tested positive for banned substances 3 times in 2 sports? Is there anybody outside that fight with picket signs due to Miller's history? Is there going to be anybody with picket signs due to Tyson Fury's history? Because he's supposed to be in action next month, but he tested positive for nandrolone years ago. Is anybody gonna boycott that fight? And is anybody gonna boycott this one? This weekend's fight involving Artur Beterbiev and Callum Smith on the predication that Artur has slightly raised levels of testosterone and HGH. No, he didn't test positive for a banned substance, but the insinuation that he might be on something. What boxing fans are going to stand on principle this weekend and boycott that fight? Which ones? That I'm supposed to boycott Alicia Baumgardner. I'm not going to do that. Because I don't care that much. That's the difference between me and a lot of other people, that I'm willing to admit it. I'm willing to say it. I'm not going to beat around the bush.
For what?
The sport of boxing, the fans in the sport, the fighters themselves, they're not really all that hung up over this, because if they were, they'd stand on principle. You wouldn't see these fighters that have tested positive for banned substances still in circulation, like Tyson Fury and Jarrell Miller and Oscar Valdez. The list goes on. So as it pertains to Alicia,
Even Canelo tested positive for a banned substance, but if people stopped watching him and buying his fights?
no, they haven't. He's literally one of only 2 boxers that made the Forbes list for how much money his fights generate. And that's because people still buy them. People still want to see him. And I still want to see Alicia Baumgardner.
I'm not going to pretend that I don't.
The very next time she fights, I'm going to watch it. And odds are, so are you. So let's just cut the fucking crap. In men's junior middleweight news, as it pertains to the Murtazaliev versus Culkay fight for the newly vacated IBF Junior Middleweight title, Aegon Sports wins the purse bid for the vacant IBF title fight, the winning bid just north of $666,000. Aegon Sports has done it again. The Germany-based promotional company secured promotional rights to the Bakram Murtazaliev versus Jack Culkay vacant IBF Junior Middleweight title fight. Aegon, Culkay's promoter, submitted $666,300 to outpace TGB Promotions,
Which is just another way of saying PBC.
$500,000 bid for the ordered matchup. A $66,000 deposit was submitted with the winning bid. An additional 10% deposit totaling 20% of the bid is required within the next 5 business days to further validate the purse bid result. The fight will likely land in Germany, and let's hope that it does, because what this communicates to me is that the PBC is still in the picture. I wasn't sure if they were. I wasn't sure if they were still invested in the career of Bakram Murtazaliev. But if they are, you don't want that title to end up stuck on the island. You don't want it to end up over there.
Why?
Because it may not be in circulation for very long if it does. Oh, granted that they wanted to do this fight between Bakram Murtazaliev and Jack Culkay, but if the PBC had won the rights to the fight and Bakram won the fight and became IBF champion, how long do you think it would take them to get him back out there defending that title on a regular basis? How long do you think it would take when they have such limited resources?
Limited fight dates.
The fight will likely land in Germany. BoxingScene.com has learned that one explored scenario is for the vacant title bout to take place on April 6th in Berlin. That could be an issue. Murtazaliev is a devout Muslim and eager to fight for his major title fight by no later than March 9th, prior to Ramadan, which is observed this year from March to April 9th.
Bakram might have to bite the bullet because it's Aegon Sports that have the rights to the fight. And if they want to do it in April...
We'll see. A part of me wants Jack Culkay to win this fight now. A part of me wants Jack Culkay to win the fight and not Bakram Murtazaliev, because it appears that the PBC is still involved in Bakram's career, and I don't want that belt to end up over there. The winner of the forthcoming bout will claim the IBF Junior Middleweight title vacated last November by Jermel Charlo, who still holds the WBA and WBC titles and remains recognized lineal champion. The development ended a 3-year period where Murtazaliev, who was the mandatory challenger as of November 2019, accepted step-aside packages and non-televised undercard slots, while Charlo further unified the division. Charlo ran out of exceptions after his failed bid versus undisputed super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez in September of last year. The fight already costed him the WBO title, which went to Tim Tszyu,
and the IBF title, which is going to be on the line in this fight.
Very soon, it may cost him the WBA title as well. Preliminary reports are circulating that Magomed Kurbanov versus Israel Madrimov is supposed to be for the WBA title. If that happens, that would leave Jermel Charlo with just the green belt, just the WBC title, and we'll see if that happens.
But explain it to me. Why don't you want the IBF title to end up on the PBC side of things?
It's because I don't think they're going to keep it in circulation. It's because they have such limited resources now and limited fight dates to where even if they could have made this fight, it likely would have been the only fight they made involving the IBF title. Think Ray Vargas down there at featherweight. He's been WBC featherweight champion for over a year now. Ray Vargas won the WBC featherweight title all the way back there in July of 2022.
When he beat Mark Mixayo.
And as a result of that, Ray Vargas and the title being over there on the PBC side of things, that title hasn't been in circulation since then. The last time that title was fought for was all the way back there in July of 2022.
It's not in circulation.
You think about the WBC title at middleweight. That title hasn't been in circulation for something like 2.5 going on 3 years. The last time it was fought for was way back there in June of 2021.
It's not in circulation.
The exact same thing could happen to the IBF title if it were to end up over there. Now do you understand?
If it were to end up over there, they could end up holding it hostage, and it won't be in circulation for anybody to fight for it or anybody to unify it. That's my problem.
I don't want them to end up holding the title hostage, but that could happen if the title ends up over there. So where before I didn't have a rooting interest in this fight, I didn't have a rooting interest in anyone, I do now, and I'm hoping that in Germany, by hook or by crook, Jack Culkay can win. I'm hoping that he can beat Bakram Murtazaliev in Germany to become IBF champion, because I'd rather it go to Agon than the PBC.
The less titles end up on PBC Island, the better.
Look at the middleweight division. It's a perfect example. 2 of the 4 major titles at middleweight are over there on PBC Island, and those 2 titles are not in circulation. The WBA title that Erislandy Lara holds and the WBC title that Jermall Charlo holds hostage because they're not defending those belts. They're not doing nothing with them. Now look at the state of the weight class as a result of that.
It's a dud.
It's a shit show, and that's because the less titles that end up on PBC Island, the better, because if they do end up there, they're going to hold them hostage, they're not going to be in circulation, and the entire division is going to suffer for it.
So it's better if Jack Culkay wins. It would be better that that title end up on the Agon Sports side of things in Germany than ending up on the PBC side of things here.
Just in keeping with the theme of all things junior middleweight and all things PBC, Tszyu is set to land hyped new American deal amid Vegas reveal. Australia's Tszyu is set to be among the first fighters to appear on a hyped new deal with American streaming giant Amazon. However, it will not be on the same weekend as the NRL launch in Las Vegas. Fox Sports understands that while promoters No Limit remain keen to have the WBO Super Welterweight champion fight stateside in March, with American Erickson Lubin the most likely opponent, it will not take place on the same weekend Rugby League has its hyped launch in Sin City. While No Limit were initially optimistic of making the huge Aussie sporting double happen, schedules were not able to align.
Then he shouldn't be fighting in America against Erickson Lubin least of all. Why are you coming to America for him? You're the champion, you're the bigger draw, and he should have to go to Australia. For you.
You have an entire country behind you. He doesn't even have the entire state of Florida behind him. Tszyu will still head over to be part of the promotion of the NRL weekend, and given he still plans to fight stateside in the first third of 2024, will likely be deep in training camp in Las Vegas.
He's playing a dangerous game, and I don't think he knows it.
Big news for the champion. Tszyu will also be part of the first shows of Premier Boxing Champions on streaming giant Amazon in the United States, with Main Event taking the fight in Australia. Currently, Lubin is the clubhouse leader to challenge for the title. The long-awaited mega fight with Jermall Charlo was being pushed. However, the former undisputed champion and longtime Tszyu rival was arrested on assault charges late last year. How much time did Tim waste on Jermall Charlo in 2022 just for Jermall to end up moving up in weight and fighting someone else? fighting Canelo instead. They wasted your time once. You're gonna let them waste it again.
He's playing a dangerous game, and he doesn't know it.
Jermell Charlo is due to face court in March, meaning a Tszyu versus Charlo showdown in early 2024 is unlikely, but Tim fighting Jermell was always unlikely. I don't think for a second Jermell is coming back to 154. He's already vacated 2 of the 4 alphabet titles he used to hold, and he could be en route to vacate a 3rd, the WBA title, which is rumored to be on the line in the Kurbanov versus Madrimov fight.
I don't think Jermell's coming back.
Is that what they're stringing Tim along with? The promise of a Jermell Charlo fight. Speaking with Fox Sports Australia last November, No Limits' George Rose suggested Lubin was absolutely in the mix to fight Tim Tszyu. Erickson Lubin, who screwed over Jesus Ramos in their last fight.
This is what I mean.
Erickson Lubin is not a fighter that you fly halfway across the world to fight. He just isn't. But George Rose suggested Lubin was absolutely in the mix to fight Tim Tszyu, adding there aren't many other people in the division that would make sense for a Las Vegas fight, but Rose added there are discussions with every option available.
Jesus Ramos got robbed in the Lubin fight. Lubin robbed the last guy that he fought. Now you're gonna give him a chance to rob you?
Let me tell you something. When they had Tim Tszyu fly over for the Terrell Gausha fight in Minneapolis at the Armory, they were trying to screw him over. They were trying to jike him, but he made the fight so dominant that they couldn't. It didn't work with Terrell Gausha, just like it didn't work with Tony Harrison or Brian Mendoza. But the PBC don't actually have any use for an Australian national. And if Tim and George Rose are not careful, they're gonna fuck you.
They want that title. They want that belt.
What the Murtazaliev versus Culkay situation tells me is that the PBC are not ready to give up hegemonical control of all the belts and all the action in the men's junior middleweight division. Even if they didn't win that purse bid, they did make a play for it. And that tells me they want the run of the place. They still do.
And they fucked over Jesus Ramos. You don't think they'll fuck you?
They'll fuck you. Oh yeah, they'll fuck you. They'll fuck you like they fucked him, just to get Erickson Lubin back in the winner's bracket, a fighter who can't draw flies to shit in America anyway, and you're traveling halfway across the world to fight him, to give him an opportunity, because he's not even your mandatory challenger.
If it were for Terrence Crawford, I could see.
Then I could understand coming all the way to America for a fight. Hell, if it were Virgil Ortiz. Virgil Ortiz, who called out Tim Tszyu immediately after his big comeback fight with Frederick Lawson, saying, bro, there are a lot of fighters I want to fight, and I know people would love to see this fight, so Tim Tszyu, with all respect, I want to fight you. But Tim Tszyu, that would be a more adequate use of his time, coming all the way here from Australia, where he's a huge draw, bigger than these guys are in America. If it were for Virgil or Terrence, I could understand, but Erickson Lubin is not a fighter you fly halfway around the world to fight.
All you're really doing with that is giving the PBC another opportunity to fuck you.
That's what the Terrell Gausha fight was. You'd think they flew over Tim Tszyu, to Minneapolis of all places, to fight a boxer, a former Olympian, to fight Terrell Gausha, because they wanted Tim Tszyu to win. You tell me what use the PBC has of an Australian national that doesn't draw here. They're based in America. His core audience is in Australia.
And what they wanted to do was take away his WBO interim status from him. They were hoping that Terrell would beat him so that when he does, they don't have to deal with him anymore and they can keep everything in-house.
They wanted the run of the place, and they still do. Tim Tszyu said, to be a world champion, you have to travel the world. I think Virgil right now is the best fighter on the planet at 154 at any weight class, and I strongly feel everyone is going to be searching for Virgil. And guess what? He's right here. He made a statement, 20-0, 20 knockouts. Who else has that? He's the only fighter who is undefeated with 20 fights and 20 knockouts. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's great, but you're not about to fly to America to fight Virgil. You're coming here for Erickson Lubin.
Tim Tszyu has to be careful. He has something the PBC wants, and he doesn't realize that he's playing a dangerous game to where if they have to, they'll fuck you. They fucked the last guy that fought Erickson Lubin, and they'll fuck Tim if he doesn't knock him out. The saving grace is, I think that he can. I think Tszyu can knock out Erickson Lubin, but do you want to put yourself in a position where you have to?
If you're gonna fight him in America, if you're gonna fight him in Vegas, don't let it go to the cards.
That Tszyu is still in bed with the PBC? It's not good news.